Welcome, vinyl brothers and vinyl sisters. Molly Burch has just released a new album, so the responsibility falls on us to review it. And we're going to rise to the occasion, so get comfortable and join us here on the Vinyl Brotherhood. So today we're going to discuss Molly Burch's third record, Romantic Images. It is brand new, and just to give you a little backstory of my Molly Burch listening experience, I stumbled upon her music on the YouTubes late summer last year, and she's just been on repeat ever since. Her first album from 2017, Please Be Mine, it's really there to showcase her voice, and the songs are very well crafted. It sort of follows a sort of like a old retro kind of like vintage rock and roll sound with influence of like folk and almost like borderline country. And then her follow-up album, First Flower, which I really enjoyed, it does feel a little more indie pop and with some more jazzy touches. And with that album, I felt like she had really honed in on a sound. I felt like it really sort of defined what she was about, and that carried over into her Christmas record. And when I listened to that Christmas record, a thought that came to my mind was that she is just really good at reinventing herself. The versatility is definitely there, and she can change and adapt to different sounds without losing what makes her so unique, and Romantic Images is no exception. I'll tell you right now, I really enjoyed this album, but let's discuss it a little further and pick it apart and analyze it and whatnot. So let's take it over there. Let's go. Romantic Images. This is her, by the way. This looks like a fun photo shoot to be at. Oh no, she's sneaking. Yeah, the album artwork isn't enough of an indicator for you. This album is somewhat a departure of the sound that she had established on previous albums. It definitely leans more towards it's more of like an homage to 70s and 80s R&B, soul, disco, dance pop kind of stuff. And I must say, I'm very impressed with the execution. It feels very tasteful, and I was kind of joking around with producer Ian the other day, and said something about how it seems like a lot of singer-songwriters go through like an 80s pop phase and they make their 80s pop record, and a lot of the time the final result seems a little overwrought, or it sounds like they're trying too hard, but that's not the case on Romantic Images. It's all very restrained and very tasteful, and ultimately it still sounds like a Molly Burch record. So great job with that. Let's look through the track listing and see if we got any highlights. Control, the first album, it's very moody, and it kind of just builds on itself, and it has like a really great chorus to that. She sort of gets to show off her vocal ability. And let's talk about vocals a little bit. On her previous albums, she sort of had this really intense, like jazz, old school jazz inflection, and we don't get as much of that here. This album does feel very small scale, but also like intimate and personal, and her vocal performance kind of reflects that. It's very smooth and very sultry, and it does seem like a more personal, I guess real Molly Burch. It's a side that maybe we hadn't really gotten before, and that was very neat, cool, very cool to listen to. Let's see, Games, Heart of Gold, two songs that sound like they could be the singles for the album. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. I want to say that they are, but they're very catchy. I love the guitar work on them, and let's talk about guitars a little bit. I think the name of her guitarist is Daily Tolliver. If that's wrong, I apologize. But I'm a big fan. Whenever I see him play in videos alongside Molly, I'm always very impressed. And the writing on this album is it's really interesting. Like the guitars sound a little, definitely more sparse, because now with guitars we have some synthesizers, we have some keyboards, and a lot, the bass is obviously very involved in her music, but the guitars, they're very tasteful, and whenever there is a guitar solo, they almost sound kind of sporadic and a little improvised, and I mean that like in a very, very good way. It makes for a very fun listen, so that's definitely something to listen for that I really enjoyed. Moving right along, Romantic Images and New Beginnings close out the first half of the record, and those are two slow burner tracks that I kind of overlooked at first, but upon repeat listens, I've really enjoyed them, especially the title track. The ending has like the somber keyboard thing that almost like, it practically lulls you to sleep, tucks you in, and sends you off into like a dream world. It just feels magical. And the lyrics kind of stood out to me. It reminded me of one of my favorite things about Molly Burch and her writing. Her choruses are always really straightforward and very dramatic and intense. For example, on the title track, she says something like, I'm dying for you, dying for your love. I don't want to be healed unless you're the one to heal me. And to drive this point further, a couple tracks later, we have Took a Minute. And this is probably where a nitpick comes in, almost to a fault. The lyrics seem a little too simplistic, maybe not fully realized. Maybe that was on purpose. Maybe she was going for a more minimalist thing. But either way, that is a very fun track musically. So don't miss out on that. And Emotion, the track following Took a Minute, that definitely was a single, because I've actually heard it out in the wild. Probably like at a mall or something. But that song was produced with Wild Nothing, and it's a kind of an outlier, and I don't know if it was originally intended for this album, but it does lean into more like modern pop, like she just went for it, but it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. The whole album feels very cohesive, and it's definitely a good fit. And after that we have Honeymoon Phase, which is definitely one of my favorite songs on the album. It's very catchy, and the melody does some really, really neat things, and the snare drum, I don't know, I always love a great sounding snare drum, and Honeymoon Phase definitely has that. I could listen to that snare hit all day. And the album closes out with Easy and Back in Time, two more slow jams to close out the record, both very solid. And the last track kind of touches on a theme that you sort of catch here and there about self-doubt, dealing with, struggling with her identity and her anxieties. And it kind of balances out the majority of the record, which is mostly just love songs, which I love and I think is fantastic, but it's nice to have that little variety there, and it definitely does emphasize that this is a very raw and real version of Molly that we're listening to on this album. And so that's Romantic Images. I don't know if there's anything else I want to add to that, so maybe we should head back and kind of close off this discussion. It's Molly's signature. I hope you're jealous. Just kidding, you can buy it on our website. So, Romantic Images, it is a very good, feel-good summer record, and timed perfectly. Like I said earlier, Molly Burch has been on repeat for the last year, and I was sort of needing something new, and this album came right on time, so thank you, Molly and crew. I think this is, like I said, it is a good testament of uh, her creativity and the versatility that she has, and props to her for making this sound work for her. I think that if I have any nitpick, it's that maybe some lyrics don't feel as fully realized, or some compositions might seem overly familiar. But I will say this, before it really does kind of get to that point, there are enough twists and turns and enough of that distinctive, like, Molly Burch creativity to make it sound unique. And like I said, it's just a good time. It's just a great record to have going on now that we're here in the summer months. So I think if we're looking at objectively, it probably falls somewhere around a 7.5, but here at the Vinyl Brotherhood, we like to give Molly Burch higher scores just because I take out every opportunity I can to just shill Molly Burch. So I think I'm going to go with an 8. I really enjoyed this album, and I definitely recommend it. So I don't know if I have anything to add beyond that, so thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.